people don't think I'm just a fucking liberal or something.
It's funny. That's going to kind of be the first question we'll get
Cool.
into is
Cool.
about that. So let me make sure we're live here. All right, cool. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us tonight on this live stream. Tonight, I am joined by Chris from Red Pill Philosophy. How you doing today, man?
Arthur, I'm doing pretty good, man. How are you doing today?
Doing good, man. I appreciate you joining me for this discussion.
Hmm.
I have been following you for probably since the election. It's
Okay.
funny you're wearing that Trump shirt. I remember
Yep.
back in the day, you're probably like one of the first people, or one of the only people, thinking Trump was going to win. And I specifically remember that around election time. And then, it seems kind of a lifetime ago, but
Oh yeah.
I haven't. Yeah, I've been following you since then.
Cool, man.
And I just noticed, so a couple of your recent videos. I mean, going back to months now. I mean, you have been posting more about veganism, and specifically, in your videos, you kind of seem to be bashing like meat eaters, and I do
Yeah, a
find
little
that.
bit, yeah. A little bit, yeah.
Sure, yeah, yeah. I find that interesting, and then you do kind of see, looking at your audience and your comments, there is kind of that divide, because usually, and that's going to be my first question is, why is veganism sometimes associated in a negative light with maybe conservatives or people leaning on the right? And it's
Because vegans are soy boy cucks. You
yeah,
know, if you're a vegan, you're a soy boy cuck.
right,
And look, I absolutely get it. That I definitely think for for a long period of time here in America, for sure, if you were a vegan, you were most probably a liberal. Like this was like a guarantee. Um, and there could be, you could probably spend hours trying to dissect the psychological reasons why liberals in America, going back decades, tended to be vegans. But I think that there's an argument for veganism that has basically nothing to do with liberalism, SJWs, Marxism, communism. There's an argument for veganism that ain't got shit to do with that. Just a couple of weeks ago, Donald Trump. I mean, who is the what greater symbol of alpha masculinity is there today than Donald J. Trump, especially for like, the right and for the conservative movement? What greater symbol of alpha masculinity is there? And even he came out just a few weeks ago and he called elephant trophy hunting a horror show. Quote, a horror show, because a bunch of conservative pundits were coming out and saying, Trump, please, you have to end this atrocity. You have to end this barbarism. It's so terrible what they're doing. And I find that really interesting because these are the same, leading conservative figures who are like, yeah, we got to support hunting, and yeah, meat eating, and yeah, fuck those, crazy, liberal vegans and all that. So I find it interesting how we seem to kind of arbitrarily draw the line on what animals we should and shouldn't protect on the basis of, ooh, elephants are majestic, or ooh, dogs are cute.
right.
I don't think there's much logic to that arbitrary line. And for me, veganism isn't even so much about the animals and morality and, oh, look, they're suffering. A big part of it for me, why I find veganism appealing, is because of logical consistency. Maybe we can get into that later, but yeah, I mean that's
Sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
rant.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to kind of piggyback off that. So before we dive into veganism, what is your opinion then on hunting? I mean, there is trophy hunting, as obviously, you're hunting an animal, usually an exotic animal, to, get its head or whatever, or like get, what's it called? Taxidermy it and keep it as a trophy.
Yes.
But what I mean, do you realize that there's a difference between maybe something like that and hunters all across the United States who maybe hunt deer, elk, and they eat them? They are, when I was vegan, I would have a lot of arguments with other vegans who, um, were like, oh, we shouldn't hunt animals, and they basically said, oh, we shouldn't hunt animals and it's inhumane. But when you actually go and see, like when people are hunting, which I recently was able to do, it's they respect the animals, they respect the, I mean, they're shooting them and they're killing them instantly. It's not there to like, oh, I want to, kill and make an animal suffer.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah, and people take that meat from that animal, and eat that meat, and they're directly not supporting a factory farm,
Yes.
which is, that's one of my main problems too. Still, even as a non-vegan, is the truth of factory farming and the despicable acts that they do on there. And so what is your opinion on that?
Well, look, I mean, I think that if you hunt your own animal, I mean, if you have, the courage, the balls, whatever you want to call it, to kill the animal yourself, I think that you're taking a big step in the right direction, because going back to logical consistency which is what I mentioned earlier.
Hmm.
I think it's weird to pay and fund and support an industry that is killing, torturing, butchering animals. And if you can't face, a lot of people when they watch factory farm footage, they get nauseous. But what did you think was going on? Now, a lot of people are ignorant. It's true, but I think that even sometimes people, when they know what's going on in these factory farms, even though they would be repulsed to see the footage, even though it would be absolutely disgusting if they had to watch the footage right before they went to go have a steak dinner somewhere, they might reconsider it. It happened to me when I was young, when I was like maybe, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 years old. Um, here in Miami, Cubans celebrate something called Noche Buena, and we went out to go kill a pig. So you go out into the middle of the woods, and like it's this, fucking under the table shit, and they're slaughtering pigs, and they're dragging these pigs out, and they got this one random dude with a fucking knife, and they drag these pigs out, and then four men hold the pig upside down by its legs, and then they just start stabbing it in the heart, and the pigs are screaming and squealing, and then they throw the pigs in this hot boiling bathtub till the hair falls off. They scrape the hair off, they clean it, and then they slash it open down the torso. And I remember vividly as a young kid, this one dude, he had the pig lying on its back. It was already dead. He had its whole torso cut open, and the guy just stuck his hand like from the neck, and then with his hand just kind of pulled all the organs, just sloshed it right out of the damn pig, out of its body, and into a bucket. Point of the story is that after that experience, the next day, when it was the Noche Buena celebration, which is basically the Hispanic version of Christmas Eve, they had the big dead pig laid out on the table, all cooked and seasoned. That year, I couldn't eat the pig. I'd eaten the pig every year before that without a second thought. I'd eaten it, no problem, delicious, even though it was heavily seasoned to cover up the smell of the dead animal. So it's not even like we even want to eat the dead animal sometimes. Point of the story is, I do think that sometimes some people, when they eat meat, it requires ignorance. It requires not really seeing the reality behind it. Now, I know that doesn't necessarily apply to hunting, but on hunting, I absolutely respect it way more than someone who is disgusted by factory farming but chooses to engage in it anyways, and for that matter, tries to tell themselves bizarre rationalizations about why it's okay to do it to the pigs. Oh, the pigs don't feel, or oh, the cows, they're not sentient, or oh, the animals were put here because God said, they're here for us to eat. So I do respect hunting way more. I do think that if you go out and you kill it yourself, at least you're being consistent. If you go out and you kill it yourself, at least you can eat something that you can see the reality of it. You can see the reality behind what you're funding, what you're paying for, and you're not repulsed. To me, if you're repulsed by it, then I think that means you probably shouldn't be supporting an action that you're repulsed by. It's like this cognitive dissonance that requires a sort of ignorance. You need to be ignorant of the reality. You have to pretend it doesn't matter. Don't look at the slaughterhouse footage in order to feel okay enough to eat the damn steak.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that when it comes to hunting, look, there are issues that I think I do think there's some issues with the vegan argument. You could argue that maybe plants feel, maybe plants are sentient. I don't know if that's true, but a lot of people who say it could be. I don't know if it's fucking true or not. I do think that we all have a little bit of blood on our hands. I do think that we're all somehow killing some shit. I think it's
Right.
kind of inevitable. Um,
Right.
so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, the people who bring up the how the plants, they maybe they feel something, because of evidence of when there's caterpillars or bugs eating them, a certain tree or plants, they'll change the smell or some type of or thing like mist or something that will influence the bugs to go away. Or
Mm.
they've seen it too with giraffes, where some plants will change their composition and how they taste to taste like foul, so the giraffe will stop eating it. Oh, and this is proof that they're sentient or living. I don't think that's a valid argument. I mean, plants don't have a central nervous system. You need a central nervous system to feel pain. But when it comes to veganism, so people turn vegan for many reasons, and me specifically, I went vegan for health reasons. Uh, do you I never really see you argue about veganism when it comes to health, or have you talked about that, or what is your view on that?
Not really. There's just, a lot of people say it's good. A lot of people say it's bad. A lot of people say, I fucking, got cancer when I stopped eating meat. A lot of people say a lot of things, and there's a lot of studies
Right.
going both ways. And I don't pretty much, I don't even like to cite studies because there's always a counter study that says, oh, but these people went out and did this, and then that was the empirical conclusion. So, no, I don't really go too much about health. I've
Sure.
been, I'm not 100% vegan, as a lot of people who might be watching this may know. I'm not 100% vegan. Part of it is because I lack discipline. I mean, I have trouble staying on a goddamn diet, let alone not eating the animal products that I grew up eating my entire life.
Right.
That being said, I can step back, I can look at my actions and be like, Chris, you probably wouldn't slash the cow's throat open yourself. So why the fuck are you paying for a goddamn cheeseburger? Um, so
Sure.
I kind of forgot where the fuck that was going, but I don't know if you want to
Just
pick it up from there.
Yeah, just about health. I mean, so, when it comes to the argument of like killing animals and stuff, I learned when I became, when I kind of was getting into this vegan lifestyle. I mean, so the title of my this stream is why I'm not vegan, right? So I was vegan for 2 years. I went completely just, some people kind of are vegetarian for a couple weeks or months and slowly grow into vegans.
Yeah.
For people who don't know the difference, vegetarian, you don't eat meat, but you still consume dairy. Most people's excuse is that, they can't stop eating cheese. Everyone loves cheese, and
Yep.
dairy products, and eggs sometimes is thrown in there. But the main thing is they don't eat meat. Vegans is where you're completely avoiding all animal products in your diet, meat, eggs, anything from an animal, eggs, dairy, meat. So I just went straight vegan because I did have a couple. I had a couple family members I lost to cancer a couple years ago. I lost my dad to cancer a couple years ago, and that was kind of like a huge like life turning event for me. Like, oh my god! And after that happened, I kind of was like realizing my mortality and realizing, what am I eating? When he was sick, I started researching about diets and how that can affect cancer and things like that.
Mm.
I've always I was more interested about that, especially when that happened, and just kind of we do live in an epidemic. I mean, you see obesity spiking. Just go to your local Walmart or anywhere. Obesity is going crazy. Cancers, heart disease, diabetes, all these new things that all related to how we eat in our diet for the most part. Um, so I started, I just became extremely open-minded, and, was like, you know what, I'm going to research, I'm going to go into, I want to try things that are going to be best for me. If I have to give up meat, if I have to give up whatever, like I just went full open-minded to it. And I started watching vegan YouTubers. The internet is a great resource for anything you want to find. And I just came across a couple of vegan YouTubers and influencers who were talking about you know, a lot of them would show like the animal stuff about like the slaughterhouses and, you know, and my thing is with that is people, yeah, people do have a cognitive dissonance when it comes to how meat gets to the plate, you know. Some people care, some people rather not think about it. Maybe they do think about it. A lot of people are like, yeah, I know this is what happens, you know, it is what it is. So and for the main thing, I kind of felt the same way too. um, but I was more worried about my health, and that's when I started watching YouTubers talking about referencing studies showing how cancer and all these diseases are related to saturated fats and cholesterol, which is only found in animal products, and that you should cut out. You should cut it out, and plant-based diet is the way to go. And I was like, wow, oh my God, I need a change. And you know, I started following, you know, the great thing about following these YouTubers is they'll make recipe videos, and I started, you know, partaking in it for my health. Um, but you know, it was okay at first, and you know, it was kind of for me too, but for a lot of people, they struggle with when they do go vegan is sometimes what culture you come from. So you know, going to my mom's house or going to certain family members' house, I had to explain to them that I don't eat meat and I don't eat, you know, these kind of foods, and you know, they would think it was strange and
Oh
oh my
yeah.
God, like all these weird questions that
Oh yeah.
wanted to ask me. You know, I don't know what your experience is with that.
Oh, it's the same as yours. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to cut you off, but it's the same as yours. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, it wasn't a big deal. Like people would always ask me, like, "Oh, like what's the hardest thing about being vegan or whatever?" And it's, you know, I don't think it was hard at all. You know, I grew up a lot when I went through what I went through, and you know, I was very like, oh, you know what, this is the health. I need to make the best health choices for myself. And if eating meat and all these animal products is what's bad for me, I'm gonna stop. But you do see a lot of people convert nowadays, you know, more to the fact of the animal, you know, abuse. You know, that's when you see vegans protesting and you see vegans um, trying to talk to people, that is the kind of the main thing they go to. And if they don't, then that's when they do the health thing. But that's why you know, I started to become vegan. And the problem with that is that, yeah, you know, I felt great at first. You know, I lost weight, and I felt great. You know, I everything was going fine. I was like, hey, this is the diet for me. It's working. You know, I feel good. But after about a year, I did start to feel kind of sluggish, and had a hard time concentrating. I felt like I couldn't get through the day. I felt like a little more tired throughout the day. I would have to take naps. You know, when I didn't want to, I would have a full night of sleep, but I would have to take a nap to get through the day. When I, you know, I thought that something like that, you know, isn't normal. Um, Also, I felt, you know, people talks about, you know, with protein, like, oh, there's plenty of protein in plants. Um, sure, you know, people often compare, like, you know, the amount of protein found in broccoli and steak is the same, but they often forget that it's density based. So you would have to eat, you know, a couple pounds of vegetables to get the same amount of protein in meat. So
Mm.
obviously, I wasn't doing that, so it was a little harder. After a while, I felt like a little harder to like maintain muscle.
Mm.
You know, and muscle is essential, not just, you know, because you know people want to build muscle, but that also helps uh, with body fat. Keeping a low body fat helps you burn calories throughout the day.
Mm.
Um, so eventually, you know, I was like, whatever, you know, I don't know what's going on. I started doing a little further research, and you know, and started doing a little more research on nutrition and things like that. And that's when I kind of discovered, you know, last year, first of all, I watched so many vegan documentaries that talked about the lifestyle and, you know, animal cruelty, things like that. But they started making health claims that were kind of debunked last year when there was that, I don't know if you know about that revelation of um, showing like the sugar industry was bribing like
Yeah.
scientists and stuff to do studies showing that sugar wasn't, you know, related
Yeah.
to any heart disease or any like problems and stuff.
Yeah.
Or you know, that was kind of, I started looking into that, and
You know, it
that,
goes both ways, right? Like, you know, the meat industry funds, like, they fund their own studies and research. Like, you know that, right?
sure, yeah, yeah, I'm aware of that. You know,
Like, there's conflicts of interest across the board. Like every single one of these industries, they all probably want to. I mean, honestly, I've read. there was a former um, I forget which medical journal it was. She was like the head editor of some medical journal, and she said that like you pretty much can't trust any studies because it's all funded by big industry. So my only point is just to say, look, yeah, I'm sure the sugar industry was funding research to make their shit seem like it's so good for you. And I'm sure every motherfucking food product out there, the industries are funding research to make it look good. And I've heard a lot of people say that the meat industry funds a lot of research that says eggs are great for you and this is great for you. So my only point is just to say it probably happens across the board.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely goes both ways. But what I felt like after cutting out of my diet, I mean, whether you can, what I felt after cutting out of my diet was, after reading, I did read this study. It was kind of a big deal last year about the revelation of the sugar industry, and and it's not just it's it's not like any other study out there. This was a fundamental um, thing that was kind of influenced the way our dietary standards were set with when it came to schools. Everyone kind of grew up on the food pyramid.
Yep.
And the food pyramid is when it was funded by, or the food pyramid was started by a guy who had links to people who were bribed by the sugar industry. And it was showing, when I saw a lot of vegan YouTubers, they had no problems with carbohydrates and refined carbohydrates. And
Yep.
I was eating more of that as well. And
Were you on like one of those unlimited carb diets?
not unlimited carbs, but they just, with a lot of them would talk about how, people, the reason people are overweight isn't because of carbs, but is because of meat and saturated fats.
Yeah, I think that's pretty moronic. Some of these vegan YouTubers are like, unlimited carbs, eat all the carbs, just have whole watermelons, just eat all the, just have gigantic mango smoothies. And I did that. I did that for like 2 months, like 2 years ago. It was like a
Sure.
month and a half or so. I bloated the fuck up. I listening to those vegan YouTubers, I got big and fucking puffy. Uh, to me, it's probably more about calories in, calories out. You gotta watch what you eat. Period. If you overeat fucking mangoes, you're gonna become a fucking fat ass. Like, you know, I eat all types of fairly sugary things in a day. Drink apple juice, um, banana, blueberry smoothies in the morning. Um, oat cereal that has like fucking dried cranberries and shit. All I do, I just restrict the quantity of it, and I lose fat. So I don't think it's necessarily that like sugar is inherently bad or it's just terrible for you. I think it's just more
What do you
about.
think, real quick though,
Mhm.
but so what do you think has contributed to, the obesity epidemic that we're seeing?
I don't know. Most people are meat eaters.
Sure, most people are meat eaters, but
Kentucky Fried Chicken,
but we
breaded chicken. I'm sure that's contributed to the fucking rampant obesity in America. I mean, most people are vegans make up like fucking 3% of the population.
sure.
How many obese American fat asses are vegan? I mean, most people are eating meat. So
Yeah,
I don't.
yeah, meat consumption is at 97%. However, when you look at, so I mean, just think about it. So 100 years ago, we didn't have this problem, right? People were still, eating meat, eating eggs, eating dairy,
Yeah.
but you didn't have this, high craziness of obesity that we're seeing now. And it's kind of like, even go back to the 50s and 60s. The way they measure it is, now a woman's average weight is more today than it was a man's average weight back in the day. What has increased? That's when I kind of started thinking about, hey, I want to prevent cancer. I want to be healthy. I want to be as healthy as I can be. However, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, people were eating meat. People have eaten meat for thousands of years, eggs, and we didn't have this obesity crisis.
Yep.
Um, so don't you think, I mean, when you look at sugar is in everything that we eat, that's processed. Look at, in the middle of the grocery store, tomato sauce has sugar in it. all
Hmm.
these different drinks and stuff. I think so. If you're to ask me like, oh, KFC breaded chicken, I think sugary sodas, like I have people friends who are visiting from Brazil, and they're noticing how, I mean, it's very obvious. Americans, we drink so much freaking soda, and it's
Hmm.
so readily available. And they would
Yeah.
tell me like, hey, like back where I'm from, soda and Coca-Cola, things like that, that's something kind of served for maybe a weekend, like once in a while. And you
Mm.
have Americans who are sipping, this liquid sugar every single day. I think
Yeah.
that's more associated with obesity
Sure.
and all
Look, I
that.
mean, if you're trying to say that, there's more calories in a fucking, you know, you know, a freaking tub of ice cream than there is in a piece of steak, I mean, absolutely. If one of those two is going to make you fatter, it's probably going to be the sugary, whatever the hell you're drinking, the damn the cup of Pepsi.
Right.
Um, but what does it have to do with veganism?
Well, it just has to do with, like I said, the main reason I wanted to become vegan was for health reasons, right? And I was kind of, so that's why I was asking you, what is contributing to, I'm seeing this obesity epidemic around us in the country. I'm trying to figure it out. I went vegan.
Well, it's definitely not veganism.
Sure, I'm not saying it
And,
is,
all right.
but a lot of what I'm saying is veganism does point to all the diseases that people are dying from. Like that, like I said, all the diseases that people are dying from, heart disease,
But wait, you seem
diabetes.
to be conflating sugar with veganism. Like, I don't think a vegan diet necessarily.
No, no, I'm not conflating. What I'm trying to say is that most vegans claim that, we're obese and we're unhealthy and we're dying
Well, I
because
mean,
of
I don't
meat.
agree with that. I agree with you that I don't agree with those vegans. I mean,
Okay.
I don't know what the fuck those people are talking about. A lot of these moronic vegans are saying just eat 40 mangoes a day, eat 80 bananas a day. It's like,
Yeah,
no, you're going to become fat unless you're fucking biking up a mountain every day and burning like 8,000 calories. You got to restrict how much you're eating, based on how, your exercise output every day. So, I mean, I'm
sure.
right there with you. I mean, yeah, I mean, a lot of that vegan diet stuff is horseshit. It's just dumb in my opinion. But I mean,
So,
I don't follow their advice because I did and I got fat.
sure. So if we concede that point, then, let's see if I don't have any problems with, I'm completely aware that all my meat does come from usually, a factory farm, and if I could live on land and raise my own chickens and fish and eat it myself, I would definitely do it, and that would be, I guess, the most moral way to go about it. But that's kind of not sustainable in in the society we have now. So if you can see that maybe it's not the healthiest way, what's another argument besides animals are feeling pain? Like, yeah, I don't have a problem with it.
Are you talking about vegans, eat telling you to eat 40 mangoes a day?
No, I'm just talking to you. It's like, so if you concede that maybe it's not the healthiest option.
Don't eat 40 mangoes a day then. You can still have a vegan diet, just don't eat 40 mangoes a day. Don't eat 100 bananas a day. Like you could be on a vegan diet and not overload on the sugar. It's completely possible. It's totally I do it. It's very simple.
Sure, but when I had when I had some certain things I was feeling after being on a vegan diet,
Hmm.
there is nutrients. You are aware on a vegan diet you're going to be, maybe perhaps B12 deficient because
Supposedly, I think that's horseshit. And I'm not going to say I have studies to back that up. It's just a hunch. I think it's horseshit.
yeah, yeah. I mean, okay, so yeah, you can say, oh yeah, yeah, I think it's horseshit. Most
I'm not
dietary.
claiming that's an argument. I know it's just a random statement. Trust me, it's not an argument. It's just my
Yeah,
hunch.
yeah, and that's the reason, like, so, I'm just gonna name an example. Vegan Gains, Vegan Gains is actually a YouTuber that, I mean, I still follow, watch his videos, but he is someone who has to take, like, he's like, oh, it's I'm vegan, but he takes B12 shots because
Mhm.
he's B12 deficient, and that also affects your immunity, that affects your just how tired you feel and things like
Yeah.
that. That's what I was feeling. Also, when I was vegan, I felt like it was harder for me to, perhaps not get a flu or not get a cold. During flu season, I always
Mm,
had to fight something off, and I don't really have to worry about that now.
yeah.
I'm getting a vegan diet has been shown to be, B12 deficient and omega-3 and be
Mhm.
deficient in omega-3 fatty acids as well.
Yeah. I mean, unless I'm getting, my B12 from my 1 day a week cheat day, where I have fucking Wendy's and shit.
Mhm.
I reduce my meat intake from all day, every day to, for the vast majority of the time since 2016, um, roughly once a day. I mean, sometimes I'll like completely go off the diet and like I'll go 3 weeks where I'm just not sticking to any diet. I don't even exercise. I'm just eating whatever the hell I feel like eating. But I very consistently have cut down my meat intake. I'll go 6 days out of the week,
Okay.
especially in the past few months. I've gone very consistently not touching the animal products. To me, if meat is such a fountain of youth, um, I would imagine having cut back my daily meat intake from all day, every week to 6 days a week with a cheat day on Sunday. I think I would have noticed some type of drastic, reduction in my vitality, my energy.
Sure.
I feel really fantastic. Now, unless people could say, oh, that's because you get that meat in once a week, Chris. All right. Well, I guess if it just it
That
seems a
doesn't make
little odd to me that it would take 1 day a week, but if I cut it down by 95%, if that 1 day is so important, what about the other 95%? Why don't I feel like I'm all fucked then? I don't know. For me, I'm getting closer and closer, man. I'm getting closer and closer to really eliminating that cheat day. I think in the next couple of weeks I will be 100% vegan, and we'll see. We'll see how it affects me long term. I just
sure.
don't believe that. I think it's propaganda. My hunch. I don't think we need animal. I mean, I don't know. I can't speak for everybody. I don't think I need animal products to be healthy and active and energetic. I just don't believe it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, uh, you have kind of on your channel bashed meat eaters when it comes, about eating meat. When does individual choice come in? Like, so do you like have a problem with people who do eat meat? When I did learn about veganism, it was their ultimate goal is to kind of spread their message.
Yep.
It's kind of cultish, with not
Meat
every
eating is a cult. Meat eating is a cult. I mean,
meat.
fine, you want to call veganism a cult, cool, but meat eating is a cult, and it's a blood ritual sacrifice, so it's a cult.
It's a,
Yeah,
but
like
you
meat
would
eating
say,
is like 95% of the planet is meat eating. You guys
uh-huh,
have the majority, and you
right?
got a handful of vegans who think, wow, man, this systemic fucking slaughtering and butchering of animals is pretty fucked up. I
Mhm.
think it's unfair to call vegans a cult. Like meat
I
eating is
don't
a
think
cult.
so.
Meat
Well,
eating, meat eating is a cult.
whether you want to call them a cult or not, at least meat eaters, they're not, lecturing and trying to convert people who are
Meat
vegans.
eaters lecture people all the time. How many meat eaters, when Cecil the lion was killed,
Hmm.
a huge number of people were so outraged.
Yeah.
People were lecturing each other. When there's a news story, a dog was tortured in some guy's apartment by some psychopaths. Most meat eaters will bitch and complain about that.
Hmm.
Okay? Most meat eaters will get all up in your business over a dog, local animal abuse. They will get all preachy and vegan. The only difference is that vegans are more consistent in their preachiness. They'll take it to your diet. They'll take it to the effects of your dietary choices and get preachy. Meat eaters are preachy too. Go kick a meat eater's dog and tell me how that meat eater will react. Like a preachy ass vegan. Facts.
Okay. But I mean, when I say that, there is that cognitive dissonance. I do agree. I mean, like I said, when I was vegan, um, yeah, I would have conversations with people and say, hey, why do you eat meat? Do you realize this is bad? Da, da, da. You realize what's happening to the animals? And they would say, oh, well, I don't believe in that for all animals. I believe, they see it's okay to eat chickens and all those other species, but yes, they have a problem with dogs. And and I would say, or they would say, oh, it's because of intelligence. And I would say, well, pigs. I think there's studies that do show that pigs
Yep.
are smarter than dogs. You
Yep.
know, when it comes to slaughterhouses trying to kill pigs, they
Yep.
have to like make the pathway like winding so they don't know where to go.
Yep.
Sometimes pigs will realize what's happening and like have, faint and pass out because of fear, and they do know what's happening. So I kind of think that's not a valid excuse. For me though, it is. It's
So wait, hold up. Hold up.
Go
Let me
ahead.
ask you that. Let me just ask you that.
What's up?
So will you say that meat eaters are preachy vegans who get all up in people's business when it comes to dogs that are being abused? That they will go full
Anybody.
SJW moral preaching?
I mean, anybody who it sees animal cruelty or something happening to another
Yes.
animal would do that. I don't think that's
That's getting all up in people's business. Isn't it just the business of a guy who wants to torture a dog to torture a dog? I mean, I've seen it. Like when there's a story that some maniac decides he wants to torture a dog in his apartment because it's his religion. Like meat eaters go up in arms. They go crazy. Like how dare they want to pass laws to make it illegal to abuse animals? Like
But the
I
difference
mean,
is they're not doing it for meat. They're not doing it for food. If there was a way that we could kill animals, and not have torture, not have suffering, but people, the demand for the food is there.
well, they'll get angry over the Yulin Dog Meat Festival that happens in China every year.
I agree. I think that's hypocrisy. I think,
All
hey,
right, cool.
right. I
But my
completely.
point is that that's the mass majority of meat eaters who are doing that. So they're being very. My point is your original point was that vegans get up all in people's businesses. Well, the vast majority of meat eaters will get all angry about the Yulin dog meat festival in China where they're eating dogs. So if your point is that vegans as a group are preachy and all up in your business, the average meat eater who gets angry about the Yulin Dog Meat Festival and wants to, says, fuck all those Chinese people, they're such pigs, they want to get up in the business. They probably want the UN to pass laws to ban shit like that that's going on over there. So, as
Yeah.
a group, I don't think vegans are the only ones being preachy. And the hypocrisy goes across the board with the meat eating group, but at least vegans are consistent in that they're going to get angry not just about the dog being tortured, but the pig being tortured in the factory farm. So to me, they're just
Sure.
being more consistent.
Sure. They're being more consistent. I have to concede on that. It is true. Cognitive dissonance is something that we do every day with many things. I openly admit, yeah, I am paying when I buy meat. If I'm buying meat from somewhere, if I'm buying a sandwich, if I'm buying meat at the grocery store, I am paying for that meat to come for someone else to kill it. That's part of the price. If everyone, I would agree that if everyone had to kill for their own meat, there would be a lot less meat eaters for sure, because it's kind of like that surreal experience there. Or maybe they might get used to it.
That's true. That's
Vegans
true.
would, yeah, vegans argue with people who grow up on farms, who grow up on dairy farms, or pig slaughter farms, and say, hey, I've been witnessing this since the beginning. I think it's normal for us to name the pet pig that we have in the house, and he gets plump and round, and then we slaughter him. And they're cool with it. They're used to it.
Yep.
So a lot of people, yes, we're paying for that. We're kind of paying to have that cognitive dissonance for someone else to kill the meat for us.
Mhm.
I just don't see any. I don't see the how that's going to change really, and I don't
Yep.
see the problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, my only point was I just don't think it's fair to label vegans as a group invasive in people's business when, again, the cognitive dissonance. But again, we already went over that. So,
Sure.
yeah, I mean, so, okay, so that's interesting.
Yeah.
So let me ask you real quick. What is your stance on, let's say, like, do you think that some animals should be protected from being killed, or do you believe in any, or you just throw it all out the window and say anything goes? If it's an animal, you have a right to kill it and eat it.
Well, I think the animals that have, the healthiest sources, which, we have kind of evolved to eat, meat. We eat beef, we eat chicken, poultry, eggs, things like that. The reason maybe Americans in the Western world doesn't eat dogs is, I haven't researched much into it, but, the dog meat isn't the same as perhaps a, you know, um that the kind of traditional meat that we're used to eating. People in Latin America eat horses. I don't know if I would ever eat a horse. Obviously Asians, doing when I was vegan, I learned a lot about fishing, and people eating, in Asia eat like so many different fishes and so many different, like, octopus and stuff. It comes from like Asian culture. Um, when it comes to certain protection, I think dogs and cats, I think that, should be protected, or, for the most part. I don't think, I just don't believe creating a system that it's okay to kill. I don't think it's just okay to kill an animal, right? Or I don't think it's when vegans say, oh, we kill animals needlessly. Needlessly to me doesn't encompass, there is a necessary use for us for killing, chicken and getting their eggs and getting, those type of food. We want to eat that type of food, and I do believe that it is healthy for you, which vegans say they're not.
So why do you think dogs and cats should be protected locally here in America, but not in China? And do you think that there is a universally superior in terms of nutrition meat source that would be best for Asians, best for people in Latin America, best for people in America? Do you think like everybody would benefit if they just stuck to pigs, cow, and chicken? Or do you think like Asians evolved eating dogs? I mean, I don't even know if that's true, but let's just say Asians evolved eating dogs. It must be it probably their bodies are they digest and extract nutrients from dog meat better. Okay, well let's just stick with the first
When it
point, which yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, that's good. I mean, when it comes to Asians eating dogs, it is tough. I can't tell them not to eat it. Like, if there's a group of people that they want to raise a certain type of species to eat, who am I to say, hey, you need to stop doing this because it's a dog? You do see that. You see people
So what would
become
happen if you saw some dude eating a dog here in America? Here you just saw some guy eating a dog.
uh
And he said, you know what? I'm an immigrant from Asia, and this is what I do. It's good for me.
I mean, it's tough at that point. I think if he wants to eat a dog, then he should be able to eat a dog. Maybe if as long as he's not running around, killing dogs in the neighborhood and stealing
Mhm.
people's pets. I mean, if he's, I think there is a way to probably buy dog meat in America if he truly wants to do that. I believe in freedom, and if you want to do that, go ahead.
So you don't believe in protections for cats and dogs then?
No, I do. I do. I mean, like I said, I do make a distinction between perhaps a dog, dogs that are coming from specifically to be eaten as meat. I mean, that's what they do. They have the factory farms for dogs in
Mhm.
China and Asian countries. If it's coming from that, I don't see, that's their property. That's what they bred for to kill for their meat.
Mhm.
I wouldn't say I have any problem with it. As if that guy, like I said, if he's picking up a dog, uh, you know, if he's stealing someone's pet dog, then that's when, yeah, I have a problem with that.
So the issue is kind of like property, like it's someone's
Property.
property.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. I
that's
mean,
interesting.
yeah, ultimately, I'm, on my channel, I say I'm libertarian. I believe in, in less government as possible. I believe in freedom. If someone
Mm,
wants to do something, let's do it.
mm,
Um, like I said, so if there is an Asian immigrant who, they might be ostracized by society, and maybe it doesn't make sense that they are, because, a vegan might look at them, which I did, which is maybe look at someone who complains about eating meat and complains about, animal cruelty, but has no problems, or they complain, they have no problems with eating meat from factory farms, and then they could complain about the dogs and stuff. It doesn't make sense to me for them to complain about that, because
sure.
that is their choice, right?
So do you somewhat reluctantly um, you know, accept this idea where, the Asian immigrant gets to eat the dog? Um, or as a matter of being consistent, you're just like, fuck the dog, I gotta be consistent. So just, forget about dog protections. Like, do you still have, because I know you think that, I know you empathize with dogs and cats. Like, I know you don't think, like, you probably prefer a world where they're not being fucking killed for their meat.
Don't get me wrong. I mean, I empathize for dogs and cats, but I do also empathize for, I do empathize for the animals in the factory farms. I if my ideal world is for people to my ideal world would be a world that it did exist before factory farming, where people would hunt for their meat, or raise farm animals to get their milk, eggs, and then slaughter their animals later.
Hmm.
That's kind of the most inhumane way possible.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're 7 billion people on this earth now. We have cities, we have societies and stuff. I do realize that's not feasible anymore. I'm just trying. And when you ask me, to stay consistent, yeah, I mean, it is to stay consistent. We don't have a demand for dog and cat meat in America, in this country. Um, so that's kind of where I take it as. It doesn't mean I don't empathize for those animals, but
Right.
you know,
Okay.
that's why I'd say most people empathize with those animals. That's why anybody, whatever their diet is, they try to see a cow being slaughtered or a pig being slaughtered. They can't watch it. They turn away. I personally don't want to watch it either. No one wants to sit there and watch that. You have
Mm.
that human reaction of like, what the fuck, you know?
So let me ask you a hypothetical.
Hmm.
If the vegan diet, if you knew that for you it was healthy,
Hmm.
and it actually worked out great for you,
Hmm.
would you still be vegan? Or yeah, well, first of all, would you still be vegan, or would you still be vegan, and would you think that animals should shouldn't probably be mass, bred and killed and all that? Because I feel like a
Yeah,
big part of why you're I feel like a big part of why you're against veganism is sort of the diet argument, which is like, it didn't work for me. It was making me feel bad. So how could I possibly defend a vegan diet if it's going to ruin my health? How could I possibly advocate veganism if the vegans might get powerful enough and pass laws where just like you can't kill dogs, they're going to pass laws where you can't kill pigs and shit. So
right.
yeah, so that's my question.
Yeah, I mean, hypothetically, that's the boat I was in, right? I kind of dealt with that as well, where it's like, after I did start to eat meat again and eggs and stuff, I would really have a hard time. Like, wow, like I know where this comes from, right? You're right. It is mostly about health with me. For
Mhm.
example, I kind of hate what vegans promote. They will lie about the health implications of veganism in order to, their main goal is to make everyone be vegan, talk about it, right? Spread the
Mhm.
information. But like I said, they go out of the way to not tell the truth when it comes to the health implications. I know when it comes to eggs, eggs, I don't know if you've seen that documentary, What the Health, they would say
Mhm.
that one egg equals, is the equivalent of smoking 5 cigarettes, is one egg. It's
Mhm.
equal. And it's like, that's clear. That's clearly bullshit. Like that doesn't make sense.
Mhm.
Um, so hypothetically, yeah, if there was a way for me to be, that's why I became vegan. My whole reason for becoming vegan was for health. Like I want to be healthy.
Yep.
A lot of the people I was watching was saying how, hey, meat and dairy, and I still don't eat dairy because dairy does mess with my digestion. People have skin problems because of dairy. I had skin problems as well. So I still don't really consume dairy. I don't eat soy as well though, and a lot of people, that's kind of like the meme, is like the soy boy thing, and
Mhm.
what it does to you. Soy does kind of imbalance your hormones, and it's not good in large quantities. But there's soy in certain things,
Is that
but
part of the reason you don't drink dairy milk is because there's like high levels of estrogen in dairy milk or something like that? I heard that.
that is true. Yeah, it's tons of artificial hormones too.
Yeah.
I like I said, I learned a lot of good things when I was a vegan
Mm.
when it comes to where food comes from, and that's why I choose not to like consume dairy. If there's dairy in like a dish or something, like whatever. But I drink almond milk. I
Do
try
you
to,
think there are some long-term healthy vegans? Do you think it's possible?
I do think it's possible. The thing, it's nutrition is such a weird topic because it's not just like, not everyone is a blank slate. Like, we come from, based on your genetics, something might work for some people and it might work for different people, right?
Mm.
And that was my main thing, was I wanted to be vegan. I wanted to have this lifestyle, because of the ethical reasons too, but for the health reasons. But I found out that all the health reasons I thought were true wasn't true, or I didn't believe them to be true. So
Yeah. Okay, but so you said that there are some healthy vegans out there, right?
there are healthy vegans, right? For the most part, I do see vegans. Something vegans do. I mean, it's hard for me to say like, oh, vegans as a whole have immunity problems. I did have immunity problems when I was vegan, and I do sometimes see that with other vegans too. But I don't want to say like a general sense like all vegans have immunity problems. That's unfair and dishonest for me to say. But yeah, sure, there are healthy vegans, completely healthy vegans.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
So my main thing too. So you're kind of but do you have a problem with someone who just believes in the choice of wanting to eat meat and is aware
I have
that,
a
hey,
problem with the logical inconsistency, the cognitive dissonance.
okay, so you have a problem with the cognitive
Yeah,
dissonance?
I think it's weird to be absolutely repulsed by factory farming, yet because you don't have to see the reality of it, it's easy to make the decision to go make the purchase. I think if you went to the supermarket and the packaging on the meat showed a cow hung upside down by a hook with his entrails all spilling and blood everywhere, if they actually showed you where the meat came from on the package of the meat product, people they wouldn't even buy it. Now you could make the argument that maybe that's just because people aren't used to it, which I think there's some truth to that. But then you get into the argument of whether or not everybody should be out, so directly engaged with slaughtering and killing animals. And that's where I think sometimes meat eating starts to trickle over into like this blood ritual sacrifice thing. And I think sometimes you have to embrace it. You have to embrace the blood ritual sacrifice if you're going to be somebody who's slashing them open, who's like, just surround, like that time that I went out to that pig farm when I was young. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's just what they do. Like they drag the pigs out. The pigs are squealing in absolute terror because they're pretty smart animals. They know what's coming.
Oh yeah.
And they're just like stabbing them, and it's almost like it's like a thing. It's a cultural thing. It's like, yeah, let's go get the pig and watch it get killed. I think in order to be okay with it, you have to embrace the death. You have to embrace the blood. You
Right.
have to embrace the life that's being. You have to embrace what some might argue has been part of human reality for thousands and thousands of years. But I don't know. I just don't. I don't. I don't know. I just think it's crazy. I think it's absolutely insane. Like I don't know. Part of me is like, maybe that's the way life is, and maybe you know what, Chris, life and death is inevitable. So maybe you should just go embrace it, man. Go back, eat meat, embrace the death. Go kill some animals yourself so you can get the blood on your hands and really be, alive. Like Milk Jar, when I debated Milk Jar, he told me, he's like, I've never felt so alive when I took an animal's life. Like, yeah, I mean, that's why I call it a blood ritual sacrifice, because you're like, yeah, like it gives you a weird energy. It's kind of creepy to me. It's like spirit cooking. It's like spirit cooking.
Yeah.
So just one quick point.
Yeah.
So there's two extremes. There's like, let's go back to embracing where we came from, blood, death, the cycle of life and death. And then there's the opposite extreme, which is, do we have to do it? There's lab grown meat. There's stem cell replicated meat where you don't have to take it from a living being. There is just the technology is going to be advancing so much in the coming years that we're gonna. It's just because you're going to be able to produce food in the most just unimaginable ways where you probably do not have to kill and just go full barbaric, full butcher on an animal. So faced with these two opposing paths, I'll take the vegan route. I'll take the route where we don't have to embrace a death, death.
Yeah. I mean, hypothetically, in the future, I would wish to see more lab grown meat. There are many companies, startups now that are investing in that and researching that, where one day, yeah, soon we'll be able to grow, with the cells and with the DNA encoding of a cow, we're able to grow a cow with just the meat that we want to eat and no nervous system. So it's not going to be a being that will feel pain. It's a great hypothetical. It's a win-win for everybody. Vegans should have no complaints about that. There's no suffering involved. There's no, and then the meat eater is actually getting real meat. Because that's the thing too, is a lot of these companies, there's one company in particular who's trying to do this, but before then they do have pseudo meats and stuff, which I kind of have a problem too, where I started eating a lot of more when I was vegan. Rather, I was eating, you'll hear vegans say like, oh, if you enjoy this kind of food or this kind of, hamburger or meatball, whatever, there's a vegan version. But unfortunately, that to me too is what is contributing to obesity and the health crisis in America is processed foods. That food is processed. A lot of vegans too, when they reference the studies they do, they point to, oh, meat is causing cancer in this. Look at this study. And the study, when you look into it, usually isn't accounting for people who are eating processed meat and non-processed meat. Processed meat is very bad, very bad. And there's, I'd say is more other reason why someone is going to get cancer rather than eating unprocessed meat.
What constitutes processed meat? What is that exactly? I'm just curious.
Processed is usually meat that's kept in cans, like Spam, kept very heavily preserved so it can last longer, have a longer shelf life instead of having that fresh meat.
That makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
I do want to bring up too that I'm very sympathetic for animal rights. The only other time I made a video about this is there was it happened here around where I live, where there was a group that barged into the Chick-fil-A like some kid's birthday party, and it's like that's the shit.
They're like those meat eaters who get angry about the dog being tortured. I mean, these vegans, man.
Sure. At least, yeah, but you see that they're going into a business, and they're going on.
Dude, if a dog killing factory opened up in America, there would be riots in the streets from meat eaters, dude.
Sure.
I mean, we already talked about that whole thing,
yeah.
and we get it. But I think you were about to go down the path of those damn vegans invading a Chick-fil-A. And my point is, in America, it's everybody. It's just people arbitrarily choose which animal to get outraged about. But anyways.
Well, my point was that wasn't my point. The point I was just trying to make was that when you kind of go about it that way, that's when you kind of turn people off. And I still had that sentiment as a vegan. Like if I was a vegan in a restaurant, you can see kind of how people would be turned off with someone barging in and being outraged. That's not how you change people's minds, right?
That's how people change people's minds about almost everything. I mean, that's how. That's again, like the thing is that the vegans, they extend the empathy more consistently than the meat eaters who say it's okay to eat the pig, it's okay to eat the cow, but don't you dare touch my doggy. So the vegans are just more consistent in their outrage. And you say that's not the way to do it, it turns people off. Well, I just don't see the average meat eater showing very much restraint if there was a dog factory killing, slaughtering, and breeding dogs here in America. They would be going batshit crazy.
I completely concede that. I completely agree. My point is so in that instance, right, I have in Canada, I have talked and dealt with people who kind of protest fur. When I became vegan, I also learned about the fur industry and animals that are killed for clothing and leather, things like that. And I am completely against that too. And the way I learned about it was people standing outside of like Gucci and all these stores that carry fur and fur coats. And so, I mean, I don't know if that's Gucci, but I'm not versed on the brands of fashion or whatever, but they would stand outside a store that would sell clothing and things that would be from the fur and that would come from the fur trade. And they would show, horrible videos of people trapping foxes and all minks, trapping all these animals, killing them. Usually they would torture them to make clothing. And at that point, it's not really diet involved. It's involved with more with clothing and stuff like, hey, would you consider, and they would just show people on this little iPad who are on the street. saying, hey, let me show you this. This is where it came from. Would you consider giving up your fur coat? Now, after seeing this, most people would say yes. And I was like shocked when I was watching. I was like, this is crazy. That's more of, you have to agree that's more of a reasonable approach than those same people barging in the store and saying, oh, you're killing the fur animals, and just being kind of like blunt about it. Like you can kind of see a different
Again,
approach.
if you're asking me if I think that's reasonable,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think it's just ironic that anyone would call it unreasonable when they would do it if it was a dog and not a cow or a pig. That's all I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah, it'll be unreasonable, but let's say we did have a law that was passed for dogs. We keep going to the dogs. And if someone is barging in a private business, yeah, maybe they might be morally outraged. A meat eater would be morally outraged about dogs, but if it's in law, if it's part of that private business, they can't go in there. They can't do that. That's kind of my stance when I take from it. But
Why can't they do it? Just because you believe in the principle of private property and freedom of association and all that?
yeah, I believe nations, we concoct our laws, and over time they do change. Uh, and yeah, it's more about property. It's more about laws and stuff. Um, I can't say I have an argument about the difference between dogs and why. I personally don't eat. I try not to eat pigs. The main diet I eat is fish and chicken, eggs. That's I try to stay away from beef as much as possible. I try to
Why?
stay.
Why do you stay away from beef? Just curious.
It is more associated uh with like health implications. It's not like a healthy meat to eat. Like it's healthier to eat fish. It's healthier to eat chicken, as
Mm.
opposed to beef. It's more to do with health issues.
Even if it's grass fed and all that stuff.
There is an argument for that. There is an argument for grass-fed beef. It's just a personal choice. Like I said, I did used to be vegan, and I just it's just kind of like a personal choice.
Mm.
Different things work for different people. And that's the thing that vegans have to realize too, is that, would you agree that not everyone is suited for a vegan diet?
Yeah, that's the thing. I would hope that everyone could be vegan and thrive. That'd be amazing. But yeah, it would be too arrogant of me to assume that everybody needs it. So I'm not, or rather that everybody would thrive on a vegan diet. I don't know. I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, I don't really look into the whole health diet studies and all that. That's not what I look into.
Sure.
But I'm sure there's got to be somebody out there who doesn't thrive on a vegan diet. The vegans will say, the hardcore vegans will say everyone will thrive on a vegan diet. I
Right.
don't know. I don't fucking know. I don't know.
That's my yeah. I mean, that's my main problem with the whole vegan information too. Is if you want to show about videos about slaughterhouses and show it to people and show people the truth, I'm all about it. I do believe that people need to be informed of all the decisions they make. Maybe that will turn them vegan. Maybe it won't. I completely believe in that. But different things work for different people, and vegans, I would say they're more radical, where they're more willing to just completely kind of create propaganda and lie about eating animal products when it comes to health, in
Mm,
order to just push veganism. They want everyone to be vegan no matter the cost, and that's the problem I have with it.
yeah. And most meat eaters want everyone to not eat dogs.
Sure.
I just say that because I don't think it's fair to just target the vegans when the meat eaters, which make up the vast majority, also have their arbitrary distinctions on what you can and can't touch as an animal. So I just don't see it as sort of a fair thing to lob at vegans. Like, oh, they're just so imposing and they're so this. Well, no, they're just more consistent than the meat eaters who get outraged over the dog. So I just don't think it's a fair thing to say that the vegans this or the vegans that. I just see them as more consistent, which I could actually respect.
Sure. Yeah, man, I definitely understand your point of view. So what do you think about just? I kind of wanted to ask you like the reaction because it seemed like on your channel, like what kind of inspired you to go vegan, or maybe you were vegan before and you didn't really talk about it on your channel, but what kind of just was like, you know what, fuck it, this is something I want to make videos about, and
Um,
I'm sure you were expecting people to kind of be like, hey, what's,
yeah, yeah, of course. People
yeah,
have gotten very angry. Um, I find it funny um, because I just don't hear too many good arguments. And it's not even a lot of times, again, it's not like I'm making a moral argument here. I'm really just saying,
sure.
are you being consistent within your own espoused values and morals? Most people aren't, even meat eaters. They're just not. Vegans, I see generally as being more consistent. Now, are there holes in the vegan thing? Like, yeah, vegans probably, the spider comes into their house, they're probably going to smash it, and they probably step on bugs, and it's okay apparently to ignore that. But some people make an interesting argument where, on the whole, oh, you shouldn't walk, you shouldn't step, or you shouldn't drive cars because you might run a cat over. So if a vegan drives a car, then he's a hypocrite. But at the same time, vegans generally will accept the possibility of themselves being hit by a car. So in the name of allowing overall civilization's locomotive travel and traffic, I actually don't think it is an inconsistency for a vegan who's willing to potentially get hit by a car crossing the street to also get in a car and potentially run over a cat. Though I will say that I think it's unfair to compare a human crossing a street to a cat crossing a street, considering that humans are raised and trained to look left and right. Cats aren't as intelligent, so they don't have the same capacity to cross a street safely as the average human does. But again, that's some hardcore, like ridiculously down the rabbit hole ethical shit.
Yeah.
What the hell were we originally talking about? I forgot.
No, I mean, I was just commenting about
I forgot where we were, like what the question was.
just the good arguments about veganism and the one extreme,
Oh, it
uh,
was people's reactions, I think.
people's
People's
reaction.
reactions.
Right.
Yeah, no, people's reactions have been oh no, no, it was why I became vegan. Why I just I became weirdly aware of just how barbaric life is. And I thought it was weird that we grew up in a society across the world where we believe in morals and ethics and all these types of things, but we turned a blind eye to just the most shocking hell on earth, just systemic, mechanical, just processing, murdering, torturing, confining um, things. So it was weird to me. It was weird to grow up believing in all these high ethics and we should be this and laws and justice and all these things, and yet it just seemed a little incompatible, especially when you add in the way that we create little pockets of protection for our pets, and then we just arbitrarily exclude certain animals. But if you're in India, the cow's sacred. But if you're here, fucking hell yeah, hamburgers all day. If you're in China, cats and dogs are on the menu. If you're here, oh my God, those Chinese people, they're so terrible, and how dare they? I just became apparent that human beings across the planet create arbitrary little distinctions and boxes that are convenient, not on the basis of logical consistency or a truly consistent ethical framework, but just on the basis of like, oh, it's my culture. Oh, it's just like these most arbitrary whims. So all that just came together in my mind. I'm like, well, I could either A, embrace life and death, throw morals out the window, be consistent, logically consistent, throw all the morals out the window and embrace life and death. Let's go hunt. Let's go slash some fucking cows open. Let's butcher. Let's procure the meat myself and just relish in it. Like Milk Jar told me when I was in a debate with him, just let that spirit of the animal just fill me with this life. And I just think that's weird. It's just weird to me. It's like, I don't know. It just, I don't feel like I can say, I don't feel like I can go to sleep at night at the end of the day and say, I'm a good person and have just done that. I just don't think so. So I had two routes. Matt completely radically embrace the cycle of life and death and throw ethics and morality out the window, or veganism, a more consistent dietary approach when it combines with the whole ethical argument, and move in that direction. And maybe there'll be lab grown meat soon, petri meat, stem cell replicated meat, and maybe we don't have to freaking kill living beings. So that's basically where I'm at right now. I mean, I used to make videos trashing vegans. I have a whole goddamn playlist trashing vegans. I don't know if you've seen those, but I have a whole playlist shitting on vegans. I mean, they're actually hilarious fucking videos. I did a video on Freely the Banana Nazi. And you know,
Yeah.
I have a whole playlist shitting on vegans. But over the years, I've come to realize that a lot of what I thought were good arguments, they're not the best arguments. And I just realized, look, if I'm going to call myself an ethically consistent person, I don't think I can radically embrace the cycle of life and death. So I just said I'm going to go the other way. And
So,
and this way, I at least feel like I'm being more consistent, logically consistent.
sure, sure, it makes sense. So you would have a problem then with, you know, if someone a lot of these things when it comes to diet is something that it is kind of ingrained in our culture. You know, people growing up with, you know, their family cater certain meals, you know, for certain occasions, holidays, and it's very tough to people to kind of break away from that. I mean, do you have a problem with someone saying like, "Hey, yeah, it's been part of my culture of eating meat and, you know, whatever. I know I don't eat dogs and I don't eat cats and you know, what's wrong with arbitrarily doing that? Like if I don't want to eat a freaking, you know, I still eat chicken and stuff, but I won't eat an eagle or I won't eat like an exotic bird, right? Maybe it's weirder to do that. Maybe it's an arbitrary thing, but what's wrong with having that arbitrary reason not to do it? Some
Because it's
place.
because you're being internally, that person would be internally inconsistent within their own espoused values. Like, okay, you want to say that it's you have your arbitrary thing. Well, that's the key word. It's arbitrary.
Okay.
I mean, what else do we even have to say? Like, it's arbitrary. It's just like, yeah, well, I love doggies, but you know, or if you're somebody from China, like, you know, kill dog. But it's just like those same people would get outraged about the little handful of animals that they put into the little group, the little protection group. And probably every culture has a handful of animals that they arbitrarily put into the protection group. So if you want to say it's just my culture, leave me alone, well, fine, but don't get angry when another culture eats and kills the animals that you think should be protected. That's it.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I mean, human beings, I mean, we you know, there's the I don't know where it's from, but you know, the barbaric ritual of you know, trapping a monkey in that little contraption and they like beat the monkey over the head until its brains come out and then they eat the monkey's brains and this is essentially torturing the monkey.
Where
And
the
I'm sure
fuck? Where did that happen? Holy shit!
right, yeah, it's a culture thing. I don't want to I don't know what culture it's from. I don't want to make a guess because I honestly don't
Damn,
remember,
that's
but
pretty
it is.
fucking horrific.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it is fucking horrific. I think it is. It's either from like the Middle East or something, or some maybe Indian. I don't know. I don't
So
want
if
to.
you saw that happening, you would just, you know what? In the name of tolerance of other people's personal choices,
I wouldn't because
fashion.
no, I wouldn't. I wouldn't because it's torturing the monkey, right? I want to. Yes, I do eat meat. I understand that you know it has to be killed to get that meat. If I want a chicken meat, if I want fish, I know that it has to be killed to eat it. I want that to come in the quickest way possible, you know, in a humane way. I know vegans
Mm,
would argue that there's no humane way to kill an animal. I mean, I would disagree. I mean, you have to. There's definitely a distinction between torturing an animal and just putting it out of its misery. There's obviously a distinction between that.
yeah, there absolutely is. Yeah, I don't like that vegan argument where they're just like, there's no way to humanely kill. Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, technically, it's not very humane to like, you know, blow their brains out. I mean, I mean, if you're gonna like, the more humane thing probably would have been not to blow their brains out.
Yeah,
Um, but I mean, there definitely is a distinction between torturing them. But you know, most animals probably are tortured. I mean, you know, factory farming, you know, as you pointed out, like, you know, it's terrible what happens on factory farms.
yeah, yeah, that's the problem. I mean, like I said, factory farming, you know, it is a fucked up environment.
So
You
so
see,
wait, so real quick though, so you said that you would choose to violate another culture's personal freedom and choice, because the killing of the animal involves torture.
I mean, I wouldn't violate it. Like, you know, I mean, depends on the situation. Like, if I'm witnessing that, I would be like, hey, like, can we not torture this fucking monkey? If you want to eat it, can we find a different way to kill it?
Mm.
Ultimately, what position would I be to stop it, though?
So you okay. I thought you said you would stop it though, because it's you would intervene, or
I
did I
mean,
hear you wrong?
I would intervene to the. I would suggest it, but it's
No.
not like I would. At the end of the day, I don't have full power of. You
Yeah.
know, if there's a family, it's tough. I mean, if there's a family that's like fucking torturing monkeys, and I know that they are like at their house, maybe I'll tell animal services or something. Um, to be logically consistent, if they're killing that monkey in a humane way or getting that monkey meat from just the way they would any other meat, who would I be? Who would I be to tell them not to do that or not to eat that?
Hmm. It seems like you respect other people's choices to do something that you are personally repulsed by more than your own conviction that they shouldn't do it.
Sure, you can say that.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, because like I said, my channel and my views, um, I'm completely in favor of freedom, of people wanting to do what they want. Um, so, we have been raised in this culture, in this society of meat eating, and it's linked to, like I said, to two cultures. Um, I have a very hard time, as people are watching this stream, to kind of make that distinction between dogs and cats. I don't know. I don't know about the, I'm kind of stumped on that.
Could I
But
ask you, what do you think about the whole lab grown meat thing? If there was a way that you can get totally healthy meat without actually having to kill an animal, would you start eating like the lab grown type stuff?
yeah, I mean, it depends, right? So that's something that is going to take a long time to get on the level of, first of all, being cheap, right? So obviously, and when it first starts out, it's probably not going to be something cheap to get. It's probably going to
Yeah, I
be
was reading a book recently. It cost like the first Petri meat burger, like it cost like $30,000 or some crazy shit.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, it's just the nuance of new inventions, new technology. That's the way it is. Like it's when you have those little resources and you're first doing it, it's going to be expensive.
Yeah.
If it gets to that point where it's cheap as meat, and that's what a lot of people don't know too, is that when it comes to meat and things like that, like you were saying, or I don't know if you did say or not, but that's why we get meat cheaper, we get eggs cheaper and milk cheaper than they are because of government subsidies. And you have a lot of people, that's why if you try to buy something vegan, it's more expensive, not because they're trying to make money or because they want it to be that way. It's
Yeah.
because meat, they already have a head start when it comes to subsidies. That makes the meat cheaper, that makes the milk cheaper.
Not all vegan products are more expensive though. I just want to say that for anyone listening. Like there are definitely some vegan foods that are, they're really inexpensive, like rice, grains, your average vegetable. Just because I know that's a myth for anybody listening, and just in case you still believe that like vegan diet is so expensive, like it just depends. Like if you're gonna go buy some like fake vegan meat product in the frozen food section of your grocery, that's probably going to be a little bit more expensive. But like the average healthy vegetable or rice, grains, like that's just fucking dirt cheap, probably cheaper than most meats. And I find it very nourishing. So I just want to throw that out there.
Sure, sure. And that's when my thing too comes in, is with, I mean, you mentioned rice and you mentioned like, grains and stuff. I think that is more detrimental to someone's health than, let's say, uh, meat or animal products,
Yeah. I think
that
it's
that
about how much you eat. I mean, again, a
in
lot
what
of these vegans, a lot of these vegan YouTubers are like, yeah, eat, unlimited carbs and stuff. Like I eat, I don't eat rice regularly. What's the most carby, grainy thing that I eat? It might be the cereal.
sure.
Um, Sometimes I have like this frozen vegan dinner that's like made out of like noodles and stuff. Um,
But I
it's just
feel like,
about how much you eat. Like it's just I make sure that I don't overeat it. If I'm gonna have something that's high in carbs, I don't have a lot, man. I have a very small portion, and
Sure.
I don't know. Like I lose fat. My cardio is better than it was a year ago. I mean, before, I used to be able to run like 20, 25-minute jog at night and I'd be dead. Now I can go 45 minutes or longer. And it's not because of the vegan diet per se, but my point is just that even eating mostly vegan, having cut the meat down drastically, yeah, my health is doing pretty good, I would say. But anyways, I don't know. I don't know where that came from.
Sure, yeah, and and that's kind of the hang up between us is just the health implications and stuff, and um, kind of the main thing I wanted to talk about is just kind of vegans wanting to push this false information about the just saying meat and animal products is the cause of our diseases nowadays, and the obesity epidemic that's happening in America, it's related to meat and animal products when it's not. And
Yeah, I think I could agree with you on that. Um, yeah, I
sure.
mean it's though I'll just add the nuance that I'm very it wouldn't surprise me, and I've heard vegans say this before, but since I don't really get into the whole diet studies thing too much, I'm sure the meat industry they're funding their own studies and but as for like grass fed or like an animal you ate that you hunted yourself, it wouldn't surprise me that that's a really a lot healthier than like a McChicken or a fucking Big Mac from McDonald's in terms of the quality of the meat and how I'm sure it's a lot healthier. Do I still think it's a blood ritual
Right.
sacrifice? Yes, I do, but it's probably a lot healthier for you.
Right. Um, Before I forget, there was one thing I wanted to ask you, and I know it's kind of like completely out of, this different topic, but I did wanted
Mhm.
to bring it up with you. What's up with the whole flat earth thing?
Flat Earth, man. Hey, you know what, dude? I'm a true skeptic. I'm a real skeptic. I'm an extreme skeptic. I ask
Okay.
questions. The flat Earth thing, man. I believed in the globe purely on blind faith, purely without researching it. I was being completely unscientific when I believed the globe my whole life. I didn't research it. Someone told me it's a globe, and I fucking believed it. I didn't look into it. I didn't do experiments for myself. Purely blind faith. So,
Okay.
hey, if we're all pro science here, then the pro science people should condemn me right now for believing in the globe without actual evidence, without actually investigating it on the basis of blind faith. Pro science people should condemn me right now for believing in the globe all these years on the basis of blind faith. So,
But okay, so I mean, you do realize there's like calculations that, like math calculations that, that's engineers, they're creating structures and they're creating rockets and stuff, and they have to take into account the diameter of the earth and things like that. Like there's so many things that can point to it apart to just what we see with our naked eye, right?
yeah.
Okay.
Again, I didn't say the earth was flat.
Okay, there's a lot of yeah. So there's flat earthers. They do kind of do that thing when we were talking about. They're like, "Oh, I don't believe the Earth is flat," or "We never." Do you believe in the a lot of flat earthers believe this too. I mean, do you believe in like the moon landings being hoaxed, and like, are you kind of like an
I don't know
anti-NASA
anything.
person?
I don't know anything about the moon landings, bro. I know very little about moon landings.
Okay.
That's a conspiracy I really never really got into.
That I mean, the moon landing thing is kind of a squirrely thing, and when I do talk, or when I don't talk to many flat earthers, I was trying to message this guy on Twitter, because that's the thing too with this whole flat Earth thing. It's kind of growing and it's kind of becoming this movement that people are having this associations and selling books and selling T-shirts and stuff, and that's when I'm like, oh, really? And I'm kind of seeing like, oh, we're in the name of getting the truth out there. Make sure to support me with this T-shirt or whatever. Um, that's where it's like, so what's your main goal with this? They're trying to wake people up, right?
Well,
But
everybody monetizes their shit. I mean,
sure, yeah. I mean, they still, they can. There's other platforms too. I mean, YouTube, they're demonetizing everything, right?
yeah,
Uh,
but I mean, everybody wants to make money. I mean, of
of
course.
course, of course. I just find it kind of weird. The
Yeah.
moon, I mean, that's something I do kind of agree with when people who talk about the flat Earth is this kind of anti-NASA thing where, I mean, I don't believe everything from NASA is fake, but I do recommend you look into the moon landings because that is kind of a squirrely, like people who don't really know much about it, they hear it and they're like, oh, that's weird. Like, why? I don't believe that. But
Mm,
there's a lot of things that it looks like NASA did fake, and I can kind of understand people who maybe don't believe in the moon landings, and a lot of them do link that to the flat Earth and saying, "Hey, we've never been in space. We've never taken a picture from
yeah.
space or whatever."
Yeah, I
Uh,
think that's where a lot of the modern flat Earth thing came from. I think it came from uh, questioning NASA. I think people, which I think it is kind of it's a fair thing. Like, okay, well, if they did fake the moon landings, then how much can we trust? Are the photos of Earth fake too? And if those are fake, what do we even really know the Earth looks like? And fuck, once you fake photos of Earth, dude, like, God, I mean, if those photos were fake, and let's just say hypothetically the Earth is flat, or anything, it's just triangle, whatever. Man, could you imagine? Like, would NASA ever? They could never come out with the truth. Let's
sure.
say they just faked it because they were in the space race with Russia, and they needed to get there first. So they faked the whole thing. They didn't actually get very high up. They didn't even get to the damn moon. The rockets weren't working. They have no actual photos. All the Apollo mission photos were fake landings. They faked 6 Apollo missions. None of the photos of the round Earth that they got for us are real. They're all hoaxes. I mean, how can you trust anything they put out? And would if the Earth was not the way that they presented it in those potentially fake photos, they could never go back out and actually show you the real image of Earth if it's different from the fake ones. Because then you'd be like, well, the fake one, the original photos are inconsistent with the ones you got 2 decades later when you actually did have the technology to go to the moon. So everything after the potentially fake moon landings would have to be consistent with everything they showed us from those fake things. So if it was fake to begin with, everything would have to be fake unless NASA is willing to come out and say, "Oh shit, the way that the Earth rise, the way that the moon looks when you're standing on the moon and you're seeing the Earth rise, that's technically not how it looks because that was fake." They have to maintain the lie, and they could never go back on the lie. So how do you know anything they're saying? If you think the original Apollo missions were fake, then you kind of can't trust anything NASA does, because they would have to basically retroactively invalidate themselves if they ever went out and actually did a space mission, unless the fake photos from that they got of Earth actually are accurate to what it looks like when you're out there on the moon seeing the so-called Earth rise. So, I mean, I do think there is some logic, yeah, to the whole, like, but I don't know. I don't know much about the Apollo mission, so I don't even know if it is fake or not. All I know is that I went out to a bay. I got a pair of binoculars. I looked at a fucking lighthouse that was 13.8 miles away, and I can see like what appeared to be the whole fucking thing, even though it was apparently supposed to be obscured by like 7 stories, 70 feet, 60 feet. I don't know. I don't know if the Earth is round or flat, but I just know that I can see a fucking lighthouse. Apparently, it's refraction. Refraction makes refraction makes the globe Earth look flat through your binoculars. It's pretty amazing.
Sure. My thing is this is so if you're looking look if you look in the sky, you can see the moon is round. You can see you can see the moon is round. You can see the sun is round. You can see, sometimes you can see Venus in the sky, but depending on the conditions and stuff. It looks like all these other planets around us are
Yeah.
round.
It
Why
is a
would
bit
we?
hard. I will say it's a bit hard to say the sun looks round, because remember, round is definitely different from like a disc. It's a little harder to tell the sun because all you see is like just a white circle. It's hard to see. Whereas on
Sure.
the moon, you can kind of see craters, that you can kind of see like the edge of craters going around. Look, man, again, I'm not Mr. Flat Earther. I like to ask questions and I like to entertain crazy ideas. I think it's really fun. Aristotle said it's the mark of an intelligent mind to entertain an idea without accepting it. So I like to play fun thought experiments, and
Sure.
I think it is a little weird. I think it is weird. I mean, the moon is just a disk.
Okay. But I mean, you can have, there's math calculations and stuff that we can
And
determine.
coincidence, it is, huh?
Oh, sorry.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, some flat earthers say that the moon isn't a sphere. They say it's just a flat disk, and that it's even like semi-translucent. They say you can see stars shining through it. Or, I don't know. I do think it's an interesting coincidence that we always see the exact same side of the moon. I don't even know if it changes. I could be wrong, but I think you always see like it's spinning perfectly. You always see the exact same. So it's like, damn, like if it was a flat disk, I mean, that's why all you see is the same fucking, it never rotates off a little bit. But I don't know. Man, I don't know.
Sure, but what I was gonna say was is that I mean we have math calculations that show that calculating gravity and something out in space as large as, let's say, the Earth or the Moon. The reason they're a sphere is because that's how like gravity expands things. So it's mathematically impossible for, let's say, the Earth to be round when you actually look into it. Like they're determining this in like calculus class, and like what do you have to say to that?
The first chunk of what you said cut out, bro.
Okay. What I was trying to say is that, there's math equations that can determine gravity and that can calculate gravity, and shows that something in space as large as, let's say, Earth, or as large as even the moon, the reason that they're a sphere and, they look like that and they are that way is because of gravity, the way gravity expands. It wouldn't make mathematical sense for us to kind of live on a flat plane through space that's this large through space. It's kind of mathematically impossible.
That's interesting. Yeah, it'd be cool if I could snap my fingers and learn learn all that math and see it for myself and understand it. But I'm not going to say anything either way because I just don't even know.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I just found that interesting that I wanted to ask you about. I like I said, I have been trying to message some people about flat Earth on Twitter, and this guy, he did say he wanted to talk to me about it, but then kind of just ghosted on me. So I just thought that's kind of interesting.
What do you think about my informal lighthouse experiment? Why did the lighthouse appear flat despite the fact that we live on a ball?
Well, I think it's because of, I mean, I haven't looked that explanation. What I have heard is about how light looks like on a plane. Like, was this in day or night?
It was during the day.
It was during the day. Okay. I mean, that's why they explain. I know when you see ships in the horizon, like sometimes like they look like they're not completely gone, even though they are, or because of how, or they look like they're disappearing at the bottom because it's hard to look at light from that distance. And maybe that's why, that's why light can distort over that long distance, and that can affect your image.
Yeah, that was a primary argument I heard from people: refraction. Light is bending. I just find it interesting that refraction makes a globe appear flat. I just thought, oh wow, that's an interesting coincidence. Of all the physical phenomena effects that distorted bending light can make me see through the binoculars, it made me see what would be consistent with a flat Earth. It could have been like upside down. It could have been at an angle and like fucking mishmash. No, I just saw a fucking lighthouse that looked flat 13.8 miles away when it had to be obscured by 60, 70 feet. So look, I don't know. I looked through a pair of binoculars and that's what I saw. Is it refraction? That's the biggest argument I heard. I just find it interesting, of all the ways the refraction could have affected what I saw, it made me see what's consistent, what would be consistent if the Earth was just flat and I can see the damn lighthouse from 13.8 miles away. Just weird. Just a weird coincidence. But hey, it's just a coincidence. It doesn't prove shit.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't have the exact answer on that. With me, with why I don't, I kind of just is like it doesn't make sense. A lot of these people who do claim with the flat Earth thing, they don't study like what's the highest math class they took. Something that fascinated something that's fascinated me about taking math and learning all these different things is that I was literally learning about gravity, like calculations for gravity, how we can determine the distance of things that we plug. It's a mathematical formula that you can plug in every single time a number, and it will always equal something because that's the formula, right? It's just something that was discovered. And that's what engineers use to launch rockets. That's what engineers use to fly planes and things like that. And that's kind of where
that a lot of math could work effectively as an approximation. And sometimes a lot of the math and physics that we use over the centuries, it seems to work really well, but it really works mostly as an approximation. I think Newtonian physics works when you're dealing with really, really big objects. But when you're dealing with microscopic particles at a quantum level, you need a whole new set of rules. You need quantum mechanics to explain really, really tiny objects in space. Newtonian physics will work great for giant planets spinning through the universe and gravitational forces and all that. But it won't work too well at the quantum level. You need a whole different set of rules. So a lot of the math, just because math seems consistent, doesn't necessarily mean that it's the whole picture. It could work well as an approximation, but it's not necessarily the whole picture. So I would just say, just because there's calculations that say this, this, and that, doesn't mean necessarily that they're fully consistent. A lot of times there's more to be expanded upon that some of these formulas work, again, only as an approximation. So that's just, it doesn't necessarily mean that it works across the board or that it's the whole picture. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I definitely, I definitely understand that perspective. I don't claim to know everything. It did kind of make sense for me, in my classroom studying it. A lot of flat earthers or people just posing the idea. They say, the problem with you is that you haven't looked into it and you believe something that someone else has said. And I can kind of understand that perspective. Of just, hey, not believing, because this group said it, or this is what it, it is what it is. Science is always changing. But I think my thing is too, is so why, if let's say this is true, why would like the government be hiding it? Or why would someone try to hide the fact that the earth is flat?
Well, there's probably a few explanations. Number one, if turned out to be flat, which apparently, like many different ancient cultures, I don't know if this is true, but I heard a lot of very ancient cultures, they all had very similar conceptions of the world they live in. A lot of them described it as a flat plane with a dome or firmament covering it. So it was common throughout many ancient cultures. Why would they lie about it? Well, I think one good hypothetical explanation for why they would lie about a flat Earth would be that we've believed the Earth was a ball, and we've had the whole heliocentric model now for hundreds and hundreds of years before we could truly get in a fucking plane or get in a rocket and really go up high and just look at it, get off the floor that we're standing on and just get a good look at what the hell are we on. We believed we lived on a ball before we had the technology to actually even look at the damn ball, to get up and get off and get out far away enough to look at the ball. For centuries, we believed that. And you can say, oh, but Eratosthenes in the 14th century, whenever the hell it was, he proved that it's a globe. because he had two columns and they were separated by 20 miles. And at sunset, the columns cast different shadows, and that's exactly consistent with the globe. But it turns out, and I even heard Vsauce, popular YouTuber Vsauce, even he said it in his flat Earth video, that Eratosthenes' experiment is only consistent with a globe if you assume that the sun is millions and millions and millions and millions of miles away. If you assume the sun is only a few thousand miles away and it's much smaller than we think it is, those shadows cast by those two columns in Eratosthenes' experiment could be perfectly consistent with a flat Earth. Physically, the physics of the shadows and the light could be perfectly consistent with a flat Earth. So it's technically not irrefutable proof. That's one of the big proofs that people cite, Eratosthenes. Mm-hmm. Unless you have some type of real hardcore proof that the sun is millions and millions and millions and millions of miles away, then Eratosthenes' experiment is far from conclusive. Now people will say, we do have evidence it's millions and millions of miles away. Well, fine. But I wonder if Eratosthenes knew that back then, if they had a way to prove it. I think there might be a way with angles or some shit like that. I heard some anti-flat earther describe that. But again, why would they lie? Well, I think one reason is simply conformity and cultural rigidity and an unwillingness to change. If people believed in a ball before we could just get on a goddamn rocket ship and just look at and see what is it we're actually standing on, before we could ever do that, we believed it was a ball, and we believed it for hundreds of years. So how many people are going to say, oops, we've had it wrong for hundreds of years. Oops, all the universities are teaching lies. Oops, NASA faked the moon landings. Obviously, it must have been fake because they showed us pictures of a ball, but it's fucking flat. So, I mean, I could totally see that being one wild ass possibility.
Wouldn't that be like breaking news though? Like, wouldn't it be like, hey, we've discovered this, like, we got to get the truth out there. Wouldn't that be, I don't understand. I don't understand like, oh, because we believe this hundreds of years. I mean, isn't that kind of, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, like back in the day with Galileo, he was persecuted by the Catholic Church because I don't know if it had to do with the earth being flat or round, but it had to do with the earth being the center of the universe, when he said, oh no, we're not the center of the universe according to my calculations. Yep. The sun is, we go around the sun, and they said he was going against God, and the story of Galileo, or people should know it.
Of course.
Yeah, persecuted him because of that belief. And then later it was discovered, and that was the science that, guess what, it is the heliocentric model where we're going around the sun and not the earth. So it is something that it would be hard to kind of keep a secret if there was something huge like the earth being flat, and hey, we believed it for because I know with the flat earth they believe that that Antarctica is not like that landmass that we see on the globe, but it's actually an ice wall that surrounds it. And maybe I've heard reasons why they hide it, or they could hide it, is because they're hiding land, right?
Yeah, that's one theory. Right. I mean, hey, if it turned out that, again, how long have we had the technology to easily traverse the planet? How long have we had airplanes? I mean, you got to think about it. 120 years ago, we were limited to horseback, right. Maybe a train. So, maybe if as technology evolved and we suddenly started getting airplanes and we could really, really go far distances. And let's just say that the old maps at the time that assumed, where continents were and, all this stuff, let's just say those original maps had it wrong, or let's just say that, it wasn't necessarily 100% accurate. Maybe there was more land. Maybe it is a sphere, but it's just way bigger than we're told. I mean, that would help explain why I could see the lighthouse through my binoculars. Way. Maybe we do live on a ball. It's just the ball is way bigger than 25,000 miles circumference. So that's why, instead of 3/4 of the lighthouse being missing, I can see what it looked like the whole fucking thing. Maybe the Earth is just way bigger, and so some people want to get conspiratorial and say that all this human overpopulation is just that's a hoax to get people to think they have to cut back on carbon emissions, and it's just a depopulation program. They would want to, so you go back 100 years or something, and 150 years, and well, the plane was invented. What, the mid 1900s was the plane invented?
Yeah, like I think like 1920s, right? Like 1920s, 1930s.
1920s. So I don't know. Let's just say that back then, let's just say our assumptions about the nature of the planet we live on, because we didn't have rocket ships back then. I mean, at best, we could maybe chart the continents and our perception of the globe. We can chart it based on people navigating on fucking ships. I mean, not the most, probably not necessarily the most accurate, not as accurate as maybe getting a satellite to go up and take snapshots. That would be a lot more accurate. So who knows? If you want to play a hypothetical game, maybe as the technology to truly travel quickly, like airplanes, came, probably the rich and powerful had access to these luxuries of air travel. And maybe some people decided they wanted to go out and explore, and they got on fucking planes, and they went out and they said, holy shit, this is fucking way bigger than we thought it was. And maybe these people who already had a bunch of power back then, robber barons already running the show, had insights about the true nature of our planet before everybody else could. And maybe they said, holy crap, it's way bigger. We're going to have some private fucking islands far off in the distance, and we're going to tell everybody that they live on this little globe, and there's only this tiny amount of land, and we're going to live offshore, sucking taxes off you people who think you live on a little ball. Who knows, man? That's some hypothetical fun mind experiments. Like Aristotle said, entertain ideas without accepting them. So just fun.
Sure. What about the explanation too with a lot of flat earthers say that, oh, all pictures of the earth are fake, all it's all CGI composites and things like that. What about the satellites that you can go to their websites and every 10 minutes they're posting a different picture on Earth? Is it more, I mean, would you see that maybe it's a simpler explanation that they're actually taking the pictures as opposed to someone is there creating those fake pictures?
The Himawari, the Japanese Himawari 8 satellite was like always, I was like, oh, fuck, well, they got pictures every 10 minutes. I mean, what more proof do you need? Right. Some flat earthers, though, they did some interesting videos where they went to the website where these images are posted every 10 minutes, and they looked into the metadata of the website. You could access like backdoor information on websites, and they looked into it, and they actually found file folders in the understructure of the websites where these images of Earth were being posted every 10 minutes. And in the file folders, in the metadata of the website, they found layers, weird layer images of Earth. They found one image. It was like a 2D. It was like a globe, a map of the entire globe, but flattened on a 2D surface. And every single continent, every landmass on the globe was hollowed out. And they found another one. It was another 2D image of the globe, the globe flattened out on a 2D surface, but all the oceans were hollowed out, made transparent. And they found all these weird layered images. So, they claim that that's proof that those Himawari 8 satellites. Oh, they also found some metadata saying that something about that the Himawari 8's images of Earth, they're taken, or they're based off of NASA's blue marble image of Earth. So they claim that's, just damning proof that the supposed snapshot photo taken by the Himawari 8 is really nothing more than layered. There's layers. They say they found layers, even weather. the weather patterns, layers. And they say that you can just take the weather data from all the local weather stations that are getting all the Doppler information, and they just take in the weather data. So they claim that it's just one big fat composite. So it's a bit complicated, and I don't remember the video exactly, but flat earthers, they always have a counter argument for fucking everything. So that's their counter argument for the Himawari 8. I don't know. I didn't look into the website myself, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at that video. I'm kind of curious now, but
I'll send you a link to that because it's really fascinating. I'm not a computer person, so I don't fucking know what the hell they're looking at. But I'm gonna send you a link right now because it's pretty interesting actually.
cool. Yeah. Send that to me. I'll see too. I mean, there's the best documentary that you can watch. The moon landing thing is something that I've kind of taken interest of lately, about just how they faked it. There is proof that they, doctored photos, doctored video. There's like an, what's it called? There's like an unreleased video that they released that they didn't think was going to be released to the public, where they were saying there was inconsistencies of how far they were saying they were from the moon. It's really fascinating stuff. There's really fascinating stuff. Also too about the what's it called, the Van Allen radiation belts, about how humans aren't supposed to pass through that, and that's why all current space flight is below that orbit, the 400 miles, when the moon was supposed to go past that. There's that. The faking of the things is what really kind of takes me aback. The footage, there's different videos of when they're on the moon where the physics looks different, like on the same space flight, they're jumping around a certain way, and then on a different video they're jumping around a totally different way. And it's like, shouldn't the physics on the moon be the same no matter what? It seemed like they were doing different things.
Yeah.
That's definitely a huge one, and it does kind of fascinate me. So a lot of flat earthers do kind of link that. But I guess to kind of finalize that topic, why do you think it's kind of growing? I feel like it's like bigger than ever. You have certain celebrities. I know the main one was Kyrie Irving. I think there was someone else too who was like, hey, we should start questioning this. Why do you think this is kind of, it's growing and bigger than ever, around this time?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I scratch my head and I'm wondering, is this like some fake conspiracy being pushed by the elite to get us worrying about some complete irrelevant non-conspiracy, so we don't conspiracies going on? I thought about that. Why would Kyrie Irving, some big celebrity, come out? In fact, even in a Nike commercial that Kyrie Irving did about a month ago, he actually included a flat earth in the background. So even corporations are letting, if a flat earth was such a big conspiracy and it was they got to keep it secret, why would corporations like Nike allow Kyrie Irving to include a flat earth in the background? Sometimes it makes me wonder if this is some big psyop. I don't fucking know, but yeah, man, that's all I got to say about that, bro.
Sure. Yeah, I just had to ask you about that, so I appreciate it.
It's all good.
So yeah, I think I don't know if there was anything else you wanted to go over. I think this was a kind of cool discussion. So
yeah, that's it, man. I'm good. I think we went for about 2 hours. I think we covered things pretty decently, so cool. I'm good.
So guys, if you're watching, make sure to subscribe to Chris at Red Pill Philosophy down below. I appreciate you, Chris, coming on talking to me about this, and I'll catch you guys next time.
Yeah, later, guys.